The Lions have a quarterback. I have no idea. There is no way. There is no path from that to this. The Lions have a quarterback who does not have a contract beyond this season. Jared Goff, due to make south of $30 million. It's a good deal for the Lions at this point. Then again, when they traded for him, they had no idea he was going to be as good as he was. He was the trash bag that the Rams put out on the curb and paid someone to haul away. The Lions now have to decide when and how much they're going to pay Jared Goff. Here's Brad Holmes, general manager of the Lions, who has done an excellent job building a championship caliber team, on the status of the talks with quarterback Jared Goff.
Look, first and foremost, you know, he's earned an extension, and it's important. It's a high priority for us, and both sides are working really, really hard, and these things just take time. This working on not only trying to get an extension done with him, but, you know, like you said, Panay and Saint, it's not something that we waited until after the season to start planning for. The whole process of budgeting and preparation and all that kind of goes into it. We've been preparing for a while. And look, in a perfect world, we'd have had all three of them done. Bang, bang, bang. You know, but these things just kind of take a while, especially with the quarterback market. But I do have faith that it's going to get done.
Okay. It doesn't take a whole lot to read between the lines. Goff wants more than what the Lions have budgeted. Because if they were in agreement, because Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, they had an urgency and a desire to get these done before the draft. They, based upon my interpretation of what Brad Holmes is saying, they wanted to get Goff done too, and they weren't able to get it done, which means somebody's here and somebody's here, and the gap has been too big to bridge. And that's one of the realities. It's one of the challenges of the quarterback market. There was a time not that long ago when whoever was up for a next contract was the next guy to become the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And it was a little bit before the last guy and a little bit prior to the last. And just you work your way up a little bit. Now it's spread out more. And you've got tiers. Where do you fit Jared Goff on those tiers? And I think that the reality is, you're only the highest paid and among the highest paid if you can make things happen off schedule. Jared Goff typically struggles to make things happen off schedule. That would put him at the second tier. But good luck convincing anyone of that who's representing the interests of Jared Goff. And he could force the franchise tag. Maybe he goes to the market. Maybe somebody else values him more than the Lions do. But this is something I didn't think the Lions were going to be facing because there was a reason Sean McVay and the Rams wanted to move on from Goff. And I didn't expect Goff to resonate with the Lions the way that he has. So this is a challenge for both sides. And the question becomes, how much are they willing to pay? How much are they going to knock their own salary cap structure out of balance for this? And would they be willing to say, see you later, we have Hendon Hooker, or we'll find somebody else?
And it's going to be interesting, too, because is Ben Johnson going to be, one of these head coaching candidates? If we look into our crystal ball and think, okay, what does the 2025 offseason look like? Is Ben Johnson going to be one of those guys that goes somewhere, gets a head coaching job? And if Jared Goff is a free agent at that point, does he try to follow Ben Johnson? Because Ben Johnson is one of those guys that has just helped really revive his career and helped him play so much better. So I think the Lions obviously want to get this done, right? But it is got to be in the structure that fits them. And when you're talking about Jared Goff, man, I have so much respect for Jared. When Jared and I were paid by the same employer, he was always good to me. So that is one thing. But like you said, there's a reason why the Rams wanted to move off from him. And the Rams, in many ways, were proven right because then they won the Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford in that first year that Matthew Stafford was there. But I think Jared Goff has proven that he can help elevate a team, right? I mean, you look at what he's done over the course of his career. He's had 2 losing seasons as a starter. One was his rookie year when he was 0-7, and that team was an absolute abject disaster, the 2016 Rams. And the other was the 2021 Lions. And other than that, he's always had a winning record as a starting QB. And QB wins certainly aren't everything, right? But I think this is somebody who has a history of elevating a program whether you look at it from Cal, where they started and where they ended, to the Rams, right? And now to Detroit. So there is something to not just his play, but also his leadership, I believe, that makes him worth a certain amount of money. Now, obviously, he's not a Patrick Mahomes, right? He's not going to, like you said, make those off-schedule plays all the time. But what he does bring at this point is a steady hand and veteran leadership. And those two things, I think, are going to be critical if Detroit is going to remain a contender going forward under Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes.
Look at that graphic. Look at the spread from 1 to 10. There is a $15 million gap from 1 to 10. And a couple of those names cry out, holy crap, they're underpaid. Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Now, last year after Burrow did his deal, the Chiefs and Mahomes did something that moved money around, that created cash flow for him that simulates and actually surpasses Burrow for 23, 24, 25. And it robbed Peter to pay Paul, but they'll eventually do that again with Mahomes in a few years. So he's getting short-term a lot more than $45 million per year, but that was the new money average on the ultra-long-term deal that he did. If I'm Josh Allen, I'm starting to get a little antsy as the market has sailed past me, and I'm the second-best quarterback in the NFL right now, arguably. Maybe Joe Burrow could make the argument that he's up there too, but Burrow, we talked about this earlier in the week, Burrow's got to have a higher degree of durability to be regarded as a top 2, top 3 quarterback. If you're missing most of one season, not most, it was a November injury when he suffered the torn ACL, and then he had the wrist injury last year and missed the last 7 games, it's hard to be in the conversation with the guys who find a way to show up and play every single week. Josh Allen, there's injury issues. Maybe he had that elbow thing, and he never missed a game. And Mahomes missed a little time in 2019 with a knee injury that looked a lot worse than it ended up being. It was a Thursday night against Denver, and I thought, uh-oh, that's it, season over for Mahomes. He's been very durable, so durability is a key part. But where would Jared Goff fit on that graphic we just had? Is he, I mean, he's closer to the bottom than the top.
Certainly.
And from the Lions' perspective, like, how do we justify giving that kind of money to a guy when, if we make that kind of investment in another quarterback, we're going to get better return? It's the same thing the Dolphins are going through with Tua, and to a lesser degree, it's what the Cowboys are going through with Dak Prescott.
Yeah, it is. And Mike, I mean, I think about the NFC Championship game and some of the plays that weren't made, specifically those 4th down plays, like that first one that Josh Reynolds didn't catch. You know, we can call it a drop. But we can also say that that ball was not really where it was supposed to be, right? And later on in the game, on 4th down, and Jared Goff is moving and he doesn't quite get the ball to where it needs to be. So that's when we think about those off-schedule plays and the best quarterbacks and how they make them, and those guys get paid and all that. Like, that's where, in my mind, it sticks, where, man, I don't know if Jared Goff is one that I'm going to go, north of 50 million with, just because, like, it's hard to then say, like, yeah, he's going to make every single play off schedule when it looks like nothing is there to be made. Right? I mean, like, think about that 3rd down that Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce had early on in that AFC Championship game, where it's just Mahomes pulling the thing right out of his butt, and somehow Travis Kelce is making the catch as he dives for it. Like, that's not usually the kind of play you're going to see from Jared Goff, and there's a variety of reasons for it, but, like, that's why we think of Patrick Mahomes as we think of Patrick Mahomes. And it's not like Jared Goff is a bad quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but that's not the kind of play that you're going to see from him. So that, to me, is the difference between why do we pay top-tier guys what we pay them, and why do we not pay certain guys that much money?
And the other reality is the salary cap went up 13.6% this year. Fans quickly become resentful when they believe that players are being greedy, because the whole salary cap system, I mean, that is a genius move by ownership to put pressure on players, or to generate pressure on players from media and fans. You're being a pig at the trough. You want too much. And we were talking earlier about Brady and Manning. Brady fell victim to the I'm going to take less to help the team. Manning's attitude was, it's my job to play quarterback and get paid as much as I can for it. It's your job to figure out how to balance the salary cap. That's one of the reasons why Manning's got a head start, too, in the race to having enough money to buy a team. He made more, I assume. He definitely made, well, I mean, relative to the market at the time he was playing, he made more than Tom Brady. He took top dollar. And now his contract with Denver wasn't ridiculous, but it was still at or near top of the market for the years he was there. And then the last year he took a $5 million haircut and made it all back in incentives. So that's part of it. You feel that pressure to go along with this idea that we need the cap space for other players so we can put a great team around you. So, look, if this was easy, it would already be done. It was easy with Sewell, it was easy with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it was done. And the fact that it's not done for Goff, what Brad Holmes said tells me this wasn't a situation where they decided we're going to wait and see what he does this year. They're ready to do something. And the binary question of yes or no, does he deserve an extension? That's easy. Yes, he does. Yes. But that's just the first step.
Right.
The harder step is, okay, what do we pay him? Does Tua deserve an extension? Yes. Okay, what the hell do we pay him? And I don't fault the guy for wanting as much as he can get. At some point, though, the team puts the best offer on the table, and the player has to decide, do I want it or do I want to go door number 2, which has a lot more uncertainty but could unlock a lot more money.
Well, and if you're Jared Goff, do you want to see what someone like a Tua might get? Because I think that we're talking about quarterbacks of similar tiers, right? If we're talking about Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa, like guys who can help elevate the team around them, especially with their leadership, but also if you give them the elite playmakers and you give them the elite scheme, then that's really what's going to push them to that next level. And I think that we've seen that with Tagovailoa, right? Where he gets Mike McDaniel there with him. He gets Tyreek Hill there with him. Jalen Waddle is there. Like those guys together make a good offense that has not necessarily performed all that well in the playoffs. And then you have Jared Goff with Ben Johnson, St. Brown, Sewell. They put together a terrific offensive line there with the Detroit Lions. And that started, frankly, before Holmes and Campbell even got there. So right, there are elements that you see, at least from my perspective, where those two guys are similar tiered quarterbacks. And if I were a franchise owner or GM, I would probably want to pay them similar amounts. So from that perspective, it's kind of like, all right, well, who's going to blink first, right? If you're Jared Goff, do you want to see what Tagovailoa is going to make? And if you're Tagovailoa, do you want to see what Goff is going to make? And I don't know. I don't know who blinks first in that particular discussion.
It all changes once the team puts a big number on the table, especially as the season approaches. With all the uncertainty, you can have a dip in your performance, you can get injured. How much is on the table, and what does the player say once the bird is in the hand? That's going to be the key. And that's where I think the art to negotiating becomes critical. When do you make that move to your bottom line number? And if you're not getting the sign and indication you're going to get the deal done at or around the draft, deadline-driven business, this feels like both guys, Tua and Goff, feels like something that gets done. You know, there's every year it seems like there's a flurry of deals right before the start of the season. It feels like both of them would fall into that category because that's when you move the chips to the middle of the table. And for the player, especially I could see Tua, because Tua, and I say this as somebody who spent, even though this may surprise you, way too much of my life feeling like I needed to comply. You need to go along. You need to do what they expect you to do in any city. I've always respected authority, even though I reserve the right to say smart-ass things about and to authority. At the end of the day, I do respect authority. I feel like Tua has a willingness to defer to the man, to the structure, to whatever. And he's kind of gotten away from that. And I think that's one of the reasons why, you know, we see salty Tua from time to time. And it's refreshing when we see it because he's always kind of had this vibe. He's going to go along. He's going to go along. Will he go along when they put that number on the table? I don't know. I mean, it's part of your journey as you develop and grow and mature. Maybe he's shedding that, you know, I'm just happy to be here. I'm deferring to my coaches. I'm deferring to my general managers. I'm deferring to my owner. If this is what they want to pay me, if this is what they think is fair, I think it's fair, even if I objectively deserve more. We'll see. We'll see. And the question is, when that number is put on the table, Do Goff, Tua, and it may be the same thing that happens with Dak. Do they say yes, or do they say, I'm going to let it ride, I'm going to bet on myself, we'll see what happens after the season? For all three of those guys, and it could turn up, all three of them end up on the market next year. Their teams may decide the only way these guys are going to realize that this offer is fair is to see what other teams will or won't offer them, and we're willing to take the chance that somebody's going to show up with a Kirk Cousins type deal that is so much better than what we're willing to do that the guy walks away, and then we'll just draft somebody, sign somebody, we'll just deal with it.
Right. I mean, and if you're the Lions, arguably you're in a better position to deal with that than the Dolphins would be, because you have a Hendon Hooker that, you drafted, he's coming off the injury, and now you're starting to develop him. So again, that's something that we can see, but yeah, I don't know that when you have a guy like a Tagovailoa or like a Goff, like I said, some of that, and I hate to use this term, but it's kind of like system QB, and we're all a product of our circumstances. So, like that's a pejorative term now, and like I don't necessarily like to use it, but it's kind of what those guys are, right? So if that's the case, then on the open market, can somebody else offer that same system, that same circumstances for a player to walk into and then still have the same success? But that's what Kirk Cousins and Atlanta was supposed to be, right? Because you've got a system that is, sort of derived, again, from a Sean McVay. You've got a Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, all those different guys that are available to you, and they are weapons. And so you are bringing Kirk Cousins into that situation. That's good. I don't know what the landscape is going to look like next year when it comes to quarterback availability, or quarterback vacancy, I should say. But from that standpoint, is going to team unknown going to be better than playing under Dan Campbell when you've got an offensive line that's built like a brick bleep house, right? And you've also got guys like St. Brown, like Jahmyr Gibbs, like all these different guys, Williams on the outside. Like those guys are built to win, right? They're built to be successful. And so that's where you've really also got to weigh that, is going somewhere else with the unknown. Is that better than just saying, all right, well, maybe I don't make as much money, but I know I'm going to have this team success, and that team success could be more lucrative down the line because, you want to do the Brady versus Manning comparison. Well, Brady has 7 rings, Manning has 2. So that's one thing where you look at it and you're like, oh, well, that makes a big difference.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.